I think that the influence, that most direct influence that we see is the companies in the middle. And I think, as an individual, not as an IEC employee reading the newspapers, I think that the pressure is coming from both directions on those companies. What we see most of all is the more and more generalized attitude of very large companies, which could, as you suggested earlier, be closing their technical products so as to keep the market to themselves, a wider and wider realization on their part that they simply won't survive long term like that. So we're having a lot of support from our biggest stakeholders in terms of the number of experts that they second to our working groups, the very large companies who realize that their interest passes by that. But I think that the original pressures are the ones that we read in the newspapers. They're not directly sensed by the IEC in its own work.
And there are so many companies involved these days. There's so many inventions, so many entrepreneurs. I think with a laptop, you can probably sort of build your own small company just sitting at home by yourself. So how does the IEC keep track? And longer term, is it possible to keep track of all these different inventions and electrical components that are being rolled out around the world?
It's very, very difficult. I think that one of our big advantages is that we have typically of the order of 10,000 different experts who take part in our work in any 1 year, and they change over time. And so we have a large catchment area from which we get messages about technology. But we're also trying to build up our own technology watch function, because the IEC has a centralizing role where some leadership is required. We don't want to lead our stakeholders by the nose. It's the stakeholders who decide what's important, but we can provide them with information, and we're trying to do that too. It's a permanent challenge, and we're never at the breaking state of the art, or in the same sense that the development laboratory of a large company or a university department may be. In many standards areas, we don't need to be. In many standards areas, the correct technical standard, which will even out the playing field for everyone and will allow the market to develop, is not cutting state of the art. It's just behind, where large numbers can be produced if they're needed, according to a single technical rule. And so there we don't necessarily miss any tricks, but there are areas where we must try and keep up, and we do.
And what help can the IEC offer either individual countries or companies in terms of your network of experts?
I think that a company or a country which delegates experts to our working groups will get the feedback from those working groups which makes its own knowledge go further. So there's clearly a side effect, a favorable side effect for anyone who delegates an expert to help write an IEC standard. I think the big interest for them all, including governments, but especially companies, is in the market. If they're up to date about what the standard will say, even before the standard is published, then they'll be in a good position. I think the help that we can offer is our platform. It's the fact that it's international, fundamentally, that even though I have a British accent, I have other passports and I have other backgrounds, and so do all of our experts, and especially when there are 10 or 15 of them sitting in a room with 10 or 15 different countries from which they come, they can find the good answers. So I think that's really what we offer, rather than specific leadership in the sense of an organization which you must look to tell you what to do. We don't do that.
And I guess the final one, it was a sad day in the UK last week when CFAX was turned off, the BBC's analog information service. But I guess it just shows how fast that whole service is growing in terms of digital in the UK and all around the world. How exciting is it to be involved with the IEC in a time where, you know, electrotechnology is what's driving us forward?
Yes, it's very exciting because we see how much of daily life is controlled, and controlled in the good sense, not in the sense of disciplined and restricted, by easy methods that have been developed by many very creative people, but which are standardized, to some extent standardized. For example, the images in the camera that is recording this interview are according to an ISO IEC standard, which gives you the digital interoperability of this image with any others where you might want to mix it, or with the internet where you're going to show it. And that's very exciting for me, the control that you have over what you want to do as a human or as an organization, and the technical means that exist to achieve it.